Ramaphosa promised 1 million unemployed South African youth jobs through the Youth Employment Service. The initiative is set to be launched this month. For more on this, I'm joined by Tashmia Ismail-Saville. She's the CEO of YES. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News. Before we get into what YES is, let's take a look at youth unemployment. Conservative figures and Stats SA figures say unemployment is sitting at about 26.7%. We're also hearing from you that 6 million youth are unemployed.
Yes. So the total youth population in the country is 17 million. About 36% of those are employed. About 3 million of them are what we call not economically active. And the actual youth unemployment number is 5.9 million. Stats SA's last count. So just under the 6 million mark.
And how does the Youth Employment Service come in? How does it work? What are you trying to do?
If you look at the South African economy, there are many databases and spaces for youth to put their names in to be up for a job. But there's structural issues that get between young people and that first job. And the first one that we can't ignore is the education system and how many people actually make it through and get out with a matric certificate. That matric certificate is a pathway that opens many doors. But for 56% of the million youth entering the labour force each year, there's no matric certificate. And there are no pathways. This morning the President was talking about creating pathways for youth. And so the Youth Employment Service is trying to work on the demand side of the economy. And the demand side of the economy is how do we find new places and new spaces for work that didn't exist before. And there are new ones. You know, at the same time that there's pressure on the economy around fourth industrial, which actually is so the global trend is we're losing jobs. But how do we find the new jobs that the digital age enables?
And what solutions have you come up with?
So, I mean, if you look at one of the issues around youth employment that we started to touch on earlier, is this geographic distance and marginalization on where the unemployed are, and particularly unemployed youth, and where the jobs are. So it's things like transport. You know, there are stories of people who might get that first job, but forego eating in order to get there because the transport costs are high. And often if there's any sort of crisis, people fall out of those jobs. So one of the first things in terms of where do we find these jobs is geographically. Can we start to locate jobs closer to where people live? And when we talk about digital jobs, there's a whole range, a whole menu of things. Something like coding. You don't need to be in a big office building in a metro to do coding. Digital surveys, GPS location for marketing agencies. So there's a whole range that we're starting to explore.
I've heard that you're working a lot with financial companies. Is that true?
So what we have with the Youth Employment Service, and this is where our collaboration with government becomes so important, is given the past year's economic growth, and I feel like we've turned a corner. I see lots of silver lining ahead. But if we look at where we've come from, when you have low growth rates, it's really difficult to get companies to create new jobs, particularly, as we said, with fourth industrial. So we have what we call an employment recognition, a BE scorecard recognition. So if you take a certain percentage of young people on, and it's related to your net profit after tax, you get a YES target. And that YES target is very high with financial services companies because their net profit after tax is high. So it's a very fair measure, we believe, in terms of setting the number of jobs we want business to create. So this is business-led. This is where jobs are made, created, is in business, in private sector. And so this is just a recognition to say we acknowledge that the economic conditions are not ripe to create that many jobs. And here is something to sort of give you a push along, a little catalyst and igniter to help with that. And then, of course, there's the employment tax incentive, which is 1,000 Rand back on youth between 18 and 29, black youth between 18 and 29, on every month's salary.
So the program seems to be an internship, and we've heard that the salary is around 3,500 Rand per month for people who get into these programs. How do you balance the need for people to just get a foot into the door, as you're speaking about, with the need to not be exploitative or make sure that people perhaps don't spend more than half of their salary on transport, as you've brought up?
Yes. So the program is a lot more than internships. We are saying to companies, take as many young people into your facilities, into your factories, your sales force, your front office as you can. But we do understand that the infrastructure of the current private sector in the metros is very limited. So while we encourage companies to take people on internally, we also have what we call an SMME placement strategy and a micro enterprise strategy. So you can't talk about jobs creation without talking about enterprise creation and the scaling of small and medium enterprises. So a large company that can't take someone into their office building in Sandton, say, for example, can actually pay to have that young person get a work experience inside their community or closer to their community in an SMME. And then we have a double win, because the young person gets this year-long experience and the SMME grows.
Thanks so much for your time, Tashmia Ismail-Saville. She's the CEO of the Youth Employment Service. Time for a short break. I have more business news for you after that. Do stay with us.